Hello and welcome to Voices for Scotland podcast. This is, believe it or not, this is the first one of the year. I can't believe it. We've been so busy and stuff, and it's been a bit of a quiet time in Scottish politics. Not. It's been rather busy, the opposite. How are you doing, Alan?
Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that about it being the first one of the year. I feel I can't believe that it's March. I can't believe everything that's happened. And I feel knackered already. I need a holiday, even though I can't go anywhere. But yeah, other than that, yeah, I'm fine. How are you?
Yeah, everything's okay here. Still in lockdown, working from home, but obviously I work from home anyway, but the only difference is not going out to meetings and stuff. But I think we're easing out of lockdown, and as the beginning of April, things are beginning to open up again. So that'll be good to get outside, because I've not saw the outside world for a year.
Yeah, it's been a tough time, but yeah, hopefully we are coming to the end of the end of it. If we can have a sort of gradually come out of lockdown and return to some form of normality, whatever that means. For you, for me, for everyone else. So we shall see.
Yeah. So I think we should just dive right in, as I said, and speak about things, because it's been quite a busy time, and I can't believe this is the first podcast of the year. But however, we're here now, just in time to hear about all the news that's happening. So I don't know if you want to kick off.
Well, I suppose the thing that's dominating the news this week are the reports about the Scottish Government's handling of the complaints procedure and whether the First Minister misled Parliament or not. So that obviously came out yesterday. One report came out yesterday, and the committee report out today. So I mean, it was conclusive that the First Minister did not breach the ministerial code. But I think everybody will have heard that news. Everybody will have read and listened to comments and opinion. But what gets to me about this is that I'm deeply concerned by the approach that some politicians are taking in it. To me, it's undermining the Scottish Parliament as an institution, and it's undermining democracy in Scotland. It's an absolute mess, and it's a mess that has been created by people with differing ideological views. So it's very, very worrying in that concern, in that way as well. So, and I think that today, so we're recording this on Tuesday. Today, there's a vote of no confidence in the First Minister, which, personally, I think that motion should be withdrawn, because the report that came out yesterday said that the First Minister didn't breach the ministerial code. So, to me, that motion of no confidence, as I say, I think that undermines the Scottish Parliament as an institution, and to me that's deeply wrong. And I'll say this just a bit of a caveat to what I'm saying. Obviously I work for Voices for Scotland. We have no affiliation to any political party whatsoever. In a personal capacity, I'm not a member of any political party. So I'm saying this as impartial as I can be. But I think the behaviour of some individuals and political parties in this whole affair are deeply damaging to the institution of the Scottish Parliament and to democracy in Scotland.
Yeah, I kind of go along the lines of you there. First of all, it might put people off by standing at the Scottish elections and stuff. This is like the last week before Parliament goes away and people vote for the new government in May. First off, I would like to say that it's very sad to end the Parliament term in this way, because there's been decent legislation being put through in terms of the hate crime bill, and okay, that was controversial, but other stuff down the years as well. And I suppose it's very good. It's quite sad to see the likes of Mike Russell, and other MSPs retiring, and this will be, you know, that they will be you know, that sorry, it's leaving a sour taste in their mouth, even though it's not the kind of SNP's kind of I wouldn't say fault, but you know what I mean. And I think, in my opinion, and I said this to you the other day as well, that it's been used as a political football, because when you listen to most of the so-called the evidence and stuff, Nicola Sturgeon sat there for, what was it, 7 hours, giving evidence. You know, it's never seen in politics in the UK or the world, or whatever you want to say like that. But some of the questions that they were asking was a bit out of order, and they weren't abiding by the rules of the kind of like convener of the meeting. So I just think from start to finish, Gavin, I think it was a political football. They made up their minds before they had the first meeting of the committee as well. And you know, everybody's looking at our politics now, but you know, and everybody's saying, you know, that you know, I think as well that everybody's looking at our politics not in a good light, because they've actually wasted a lot of time by doing this committee and stuff like that. I don't know if it was a bit of a PR stuff.
I don't know if it's been a waste of time, because I think it had to happen, and I don't think people often look at politics and political parties in such a great light anyway. But I think one of the biggest issues is that within this committee, again, this is just my personal opinion, but I think within this committee, they were dealing with something that was pretty serious. That was the actual remit of the committee, but the whole context around it was something really serious. And I think, in a sense, that some of the members on that committee failed because they let their party politics and their biases get in the way of the actual remit of what the committee was set to do. And I think that's to put it mildly, quite unfortunate. I think another thing as well, which is deeply unfair, and I don't really want to get into the details of the Salmond case and the trial and all the rest of it, because I think there's so many reasons not to get into, because you're raking over, you know, coals, or whatever the phrase is. But I think one of the things that came out in the committee report was that something, I'm paraphrasing, but something along the lines, they find that that Nicola Sturgeon didn't know about the allegations made against Salmond prior to when she said she did. That's again deeply concerning, because what you're saying is that the case is done, and Alex Salmond was found not guilty and not proven in the allegations. Within that, there's the legal argument, which he was not guilty of, but there's also a moral discussion there about appropriate behaviour and what is appropriate behaviour for a man in a position of power. And I think that's often forgotten. And what sort of comes out of that committee is that Nicola Sturgeon is responsible for that alleged immoral behaviour as well. So I don't really want to, you know, go down that line too much, but I just think there's some serious questions, and I think a lot of people making a noise about this, making comments about this, have to take a step back and put everything into a bit of context here and think about what they're really saying, particularly in social media and some of the stuff that I don't know. I feel really done with social media, just some of the absolute rubbish that you see on that, to be honest with you. But I think everybody from the very, very top, including the politicians in Holyrood and the parliamentarians, right down to members of the public like you and I, need to take a bit of a step back and look at this whole situation and try to put things in a bit of context about what people are actually saying, because there's a lot of noise, which is really unhelpful.
Do you think that what I was watching Patrick Harvey yesterday on the TV, and he made a interesting point. I don't know if you share the same opinion as him about of everybody on that committee. Should they not stand now because they've let Parliament down in the kind of way?
I didn't see that interview. I'd be surprised, and I would be surprised if Patrick Harvey said that everybody should stand, everybody on the committee shouldn't stand for re-election. That seems quite harsh. I think the person or persons that leaked the information, they really need to have a look at themselves, because I think that's actually undermined the work of the committee. So I think they would have to think about their actions and their position, but it's not for me to say. I think I'm really glad that I work for an organisation. I'm really glad that Voices for Scotland is an organisation that is non-party political, because I've probably said it a million times on the podcast before, but party politics by its very nature is divisive, and it sets people against each other. And I think the work of the committee has shown that. And what that also shows is that when those divisions and those partisan politics come into effect, what it shows is that slows down progress. And what we should really be looking for are ways of working together across party lines, because ultimately every single one of those MSPs is elected to represent the public in Scotland. And if you let your party politics and your ideologies get in the way of that actually stops progress and slows things down, then that's a serious problem. Now, of course, there needs to be room for debate and discussion, because people do come at things from a different point of view, but there are times when those divisions along party political lines slow progress or stop progress altogether.
Couple more things before we finish up on this one. Just come back and your point about social media, it works well, but in this occasion it doesn't work well, because you see all the keyboard warriors basically coming out the woodwork and making comments and nasty comments. I mean, we've seen it with football in the last couple of weeks, especially going down the racism issue. And don't worry, we're not going to speak about that. And
you can if you want. I think it's absolutely abhorrent that what's happened. I mean, yeah, we don't. The problem is that you're looking at that in a football context, but it's a much wider context. That what happened on that pit, what happened to Glenn Kamara on that pitch on the Thursday night was just disgusting. I mean, it's alleged racism, but so yeah, you have to wait until UEFA does an investigation. But the fact is that it doesn't happen in isolation in football. It happens in society, and it's absolutely disgusting. And again, people that and you know what, and it happened after the Celtic Rangers game on Sunday. I saw something on social media about somebody who will call themselves a Celtic fan making racist comments toward Alfredo Morelos. It's absolutely disgusting. But anyway, so.
Yeah, just to follow on with that, Alan, I don't know if you saw the programme on BBC One last night, Disclosure, and I was showing you about, I think it was 4 or 5 Asian women standing for the Holyrood elections coming up, and the names that they've been getting called before, it's just terrible how we've got to highlight this issue, this day and age. But if you haven't, so I would recommend go watching it. It's quite interesting. One other thing before I move on, when we were speaking about the committee in the Scottish Parliament, I think as well, because the committee didn't really work that well, I think the Scottish Parliament has to reassess how they do committees in the next session of Parliament as well. But that's all I'm going to say on that.
That's a bit of a bombshell, just to say that they need to. Why do you think they need to reassess how the committees work?
Well, I guess you, when you look at the committees, you've got one person from each party, so obviously they're going to be a bit, in my words, biased in a kind of way, or whatever. But
sorry, man, I disagree with that, because if what I just said previously, and obviously people can disagree with that, but we have to work together from all political parties to make progress, and I think the committees have a really important role in doing that, and that's why they have to be representative of the different parties within Holyrood. Mm-hmm. So I think actually it's for me, I think they have to. I think they work really well in most cases. I think that in this instance, you're talking about the committee that looked into whether Nicola Sturgeon misled Parliament or not. I think maybe some of the issues are around the nature of their remit and the politicking, if that's the right word, that went on around it, and the sort of circus that actually ensued. I think that's a big part of the problem with that. But for me, in my experience, I think committees work really, really well and are a really important part of the Scottish Parliament. Interestingly, do you have alternatives, or if you think the committees don't work well, how would you change it, and what alternatives would you suggest?
Maybe that came out the wrong way, or back to front or upside down. But what I meant was that particular committee. I agree with you that the committee's work, and I mean, I'm a member of some kind of like cross-party groups at the Scottish Parliament. Obviously, not going virtual at the moment. But this particular kind of like committee, that's basically what I was saying. But no, I agree with you. All the committees kind of work, but just this one, I think it's just because it's been a high profile case from start to finish.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, it's I think it's probably one of the most challenging remits any committee's probably had to be objective, mainly because the consequences of what the committee found are so great. I mean, essentially, had the report yesterday found that there had been a breach of the ministerial code, and the committee report had found that Nicola Sturgeon had knowingly misled the Scottish Parliament, then the consequences of that would surely have been the resignation of the First Minister. So I think the consequences of what the committee have found have probably never been as significant in terms of the makeup of Scottish politics as this one had, and that's maybe why it's gone down party lines in this particular case. But I think really what we have I think dwelled quite a lot on some of the detail, which maybe it isn't the right thing for a Voices for Scotland podcast. I think the implications of it, though, are much more serious and much more important in terms of how individuals and political parties have sort of positioned themselves. Last November, Boris Johnson said that the Scottish Parliament, I think the quote was, had been a disaster, and that the Tories were trying to make moves to hand more powers to local authorities rather than move away from the Scottish Parliament. Which, when you read between the lines, to me seems that there's a great fear about the possibility of independence in Westminster. And I don't think we can ignore the fact that the behaviour of the leader of the Scottish Conservatives and his proxy in Holyrood have said things and acted in ways which have undermined the Scottish Parliament as an institution and democracy in Scotland. And I think that's all part of a wider campaign to undermine the idea of independence for Scotland as well. I think that's really fundamental. And I think we've seen before, and we'll see it again, the tactic from the unionist side is to make independence all about the SNP and target the party's record in government and to target individuals. That is what we're watching right now. And that's why I think, and I hope others agree, that the work we're trying to do with Voices for Scotland is so important, because we're not attached to any political party. What we're doing is setting out the vision and the possibilities for an independent country, because that's what independence is. It's the opportunity to make things better. And that's basically the whole core of the work that we do. And it's really important for us and for many others that it's not party political, that it's a civic movement. It's for people to set out their ideas and their views about what independence means. So it's really, I think, just to draw a line under this and to sort of maybe conclude the conversation about the recent reports, I think it's really important to set this all in the context of independence and the massive fear that Westminster have that independence is a growing reality. And that's, to me, my analysis of all, that's what all this is about. This is an attempt to remove the biggest threat to the union, and that's probably is Nicola Sturgeon. So that's my quick analysis of that.
If you want to make a comment on anything you've heard, you can tweet us at Voices for Scot, or check our fantastic website out. I've got to say that because Alan's here. voicesforscotland.scot. You can check the website out as well.
Just on that as well, actually, I've got to say as well that just off the back of what I was saying there about it being a civic-led campaign and for people to set out their vision for the country that they want to see. On our website, we've got a page called, there's two pages, one called Voices for Scotland, where you can see what people think. Anybody listening to this, anybody can go onto our website and they can upload a video just saying in 1 minute, why do you want independence? Why is independence important to you? And it's not about facts and figures, not about GDP or debt or currency or anything like that. What's important to you? What's important to you as an individual or your family or your community? Make a little video and then go upload it on our website. And it's because it's really important that we share these stories. So yeah, go to our website and tell us why you support independence. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, let's move forward now. Something else came out yesterday that you were telling about the graft for the independence. If the SNP gets a majority in the next Scottish elections, there will be another independence referendum this year. Yeah,
so not this year. No,
no, sorry, that's
highly unlikely it'll be this year. But so yesterday, which some people may have missed, but the draft referendum bill was put forward in the Scottish Parliament yesterday, and I think the key thing to take away from that is that if the SNP form a government in the next Parliament, that there will be a referendum in the first half of their parliamentary term. So, that's, I guess, So I think that's fairly significant. I think I need to see more detail. Obviously, yesterday was a very busy day in terms of what was happening in Scottish politics. I've not been through the detail of it, but essentially, the headline from that is that if there is an SNP government, there will be a referendum in the first half of the next Scottish parliamentary term. So I think that's really important, because it gives us a time frame to work to. I suspect that will be at the latter part of the first half of the next parliamentary term, not least because the rest of this year and probably sometime into next year will really be about recovery from the pandemic, and I think that's got to be the main thing that any government across the world is focusing on. But of course, that recovery, independence does have a role in that recovery, because I think we are at a pivotal moment with regard to really, I mean, not to be too grandiose, but actually the direction of the planet in many ways. But from a national point of view, it's a really pivotal moment, and I think actually being an independent country could be quite significant about the long-term future for everybody within the country, and about the decisions we take and the path that we choose to take. And obviously, it's so important that as a nation we are able to take the path that we want to take, not the path that's dictated to us by a government we didn't vote for, didn't elect.
And I suppose that leads us on nicely to the next topic. So well done, Alan. Nice and slick there. I see what you did there about the social care review. It came out at the beginning of February, and it was done by Derek Feely, and it was called the Feely Report. If you haven't saw it, I would recommend you going and see it. It's a short film. It's on for about 2 minutes or something, and it speaks to where it tells you what review's about, and also they interview some people with a disability, but elderly people as well. That one man has like dementia and stuff, so it's quite interesting to see. Obviously, I come from that kind of background, but I wanted to ask you that we haven't spent a lot of time speaking about this, not even on the phone either. But what's your thoughts about a social care system in Scotland? Again, that would be something good when we do have independence and have our own powers as well.
Well, I mean, I think one of the many things we might have learned from over the last year or so is that a national care service is really, really important for a number of reasons. And I think, I mean, I've not seen the report. I've watched that video, and I'm probably not the best person to talk about this. You'll be much more knowledgeable about this than me, but a national care service integrated with the NHS seems to be a fairly logical step. And I think I'm testing my knowledge here, but I think the care service was privatised in the early 90s, I think. Before that, there was a national care service. I could be wrong about that, but perhaps maybe you're probably better to. Do you know much about that?
Well, I think that obviously, I think we are kind of doing things at the right time, because I think that the system was kind of broken in a way in terms of people with disabilities and what have you before. But I think because that when this kind of like pandemic, you take a step back and you look at life and you say, well, is this working? This is not working. What do we need to do to fix that? And I've been doing a lot of thinking over the past couple of weeks, over the past year, and I've been saying that, things isn't working out for disabled people the way it should be. And when I saw this review coming up by Derek Feely, I thought, well, it's a good review and they're doing it at the right time, because to me, I don't know about your points of view, but for me, it's about hitting the reset button, because for disabled people and people in the social care community and all that kind of stuff, we can't really afford to go back because it wasn't working. So we need to design a new kind of like care service as well. I mean, they could listen to people. And when you watch that video, actually, it's very interesting because, and I've been saying this for years as well, we should always listen to I don't want to say experts because nobody's experts, but we should listen to the people it's actually the care service has been affected by. You know, it's okay, you know, speaking to the wee guy, good for a good Scottish word, a wee guy down the street, you know, speaking about social care, but he's not involved in, you know, in that community or not being affected by it or whatever. But when you hear from somebody with that experience, especially the unpaid carers, you know, like they live it every day. In fact, most unpaid carers do not get time off whatsoever. You know, it's 24/7, 7 days a week. So we should actually put people front and centre as well, and maybe use that as, you know, listening to the people it's affected by. And the other thing I would say as well is, it was mentioning about self-directed support. Now that legislation came in about, I can't remember now, must be more than 10 years ago now. But if you go to different parts of Scotland or even into Glasgow, there's some people that doesn't really know what self-directed support is, what's it for, who's it aimed at, and all that. So, you know, that's my kind of...
You want to explain what it is, what self-directed support is?
Yeah, so basically you can get self-directed support, and if somebody was needing support in the house, say was, you know, personal care or making dinner or, you know, whatever, well, you can hire, that's the wrong word, you can buy in a personal assistant, or as I call it, a PA, but that's a personal assistant, and you can use your budget to buy that in, or maybe take your carer away in holiday. Not at the moment, obviously, but stay location or whatever the word
is. So does that come out when you say your budget? Is that called the personal care allowance? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
You have that personal care allowance, and what you use that budget on the things that you need. Basically.
Yeah.
And that's my understanding of that, is that that's done through the local authority. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
But this is where it falls down a wee bit, because if you go into local authorities, they would say, yeah, self-directed support, and then other authorities they would go into, they would try and put you off getting self-directed support. Mm-hmm. But self-directed support is there to help your independence in a kind of way. Not independent for Scotland, but you know, independence.
Independence, yeah.
You know, get out and about and all that. So I think it's a good thing how like Derek Fiddy is doing this review at the moment and all that.
Well, it sounds very like it's very much needed, but I think you touched upon it just there. I think the most important thing, the two most important things are about collaboration and listening. Mm-hmm. And it's about, you know, you use the term they're experts. There are experts in the field, people that, you know, spend time researching what happens in other places and what might work, you know, best for certain individuals with certain disabilities or in certain parts of Scotland as well, because and most importantly, service users, people that use the service, what do they need and what are the barriers? And I think, you know, again, you know much more about this than I do, but I think for a lot of people it is about reducing the barriers that the disability places upon them. So within your house, for example, you put in place, depending on the disability you might have, you put in place different tools that you might need, handrails, whatever, whatever, and each one of these things removes a barrier. And I suppose if you expand that out and look at the wider care service and the National Care Network, its function has surely got to be to reduce the barriers that disabled people face in every aspect of life. You as an individual can control what is in the barriers that you have in your house and how to reduce them. perhaps what this National Care Service has to do is to look at that on a local and a national level and reduce the barriers that disabled people have in their outside life. But that can only happen through collaboration and through listening to service users, discussion between them and the experts and the decision makers. And that's really the only way that it can work well. I mean, ultimately, what you're looking for is a quality service which removes the barriers, and that happens regardless of personal means, because it's a really different situation for a disabled person living in poverty than it is for somebody with access and wealth and means to different sort of private care. So I think there's got to be a quality service regardless of personal means. One of the things he said at the start of this was though that this is this, I think I'm paraphrasing, but he said this is one thing that could happen with independence. Why can't this happen now? Because I and the reason I ask that is because we speak a lot about the country that we want to be, and I think the changes that we want to see, and sometimes we've got to be aware that changes can happen now. We don't have to wait. Some changes can happen now. We don't necessarily need independence for every change. It might make it easier in terms of how you finance things, and you can borrow money and all the rest of use the tax money and all the rest of it. But what can happen now, and how would that be better with independence?
I was just saying that in kind of a context that just kind of like happening now and all that. But if you want to go a bit deeper than that, people's budgets might be affected or whatever. And in terms of we haven't got and stuff, and it would be good, but I suppose
I feel like I've maybe put you on the spot here.
I suppose I'm waffling on a wee bit now,
No, it's not. I just wondered if there was anything specific that came to your mind about that in terms of independence. The first thing that jumped to my mind was there about specific policies that have affected disabled people more than others. I'm thinking particularly about the policy of austerity, the Department of Work and Pensions with the outsourced, I think it was the ATOS scheme, which declared people fit for work when they clearly were not, and then actually looking at the so I mean that's one thing, particularly about the Department of Work and Pensions and the incredible failures with regard to people with disabilities, which not only affects them in terms of physical disabilities, but mental health and mental disabilities as well, and wider than that. And which is maybe less to do with independence, is, looking at the effects of the pandemic. I was reading some figures last night that 60% of the, and this is just for England actually, but 60% of the people, so it probably would be comparative in Scotland as well, but 60% of the people that have died from coronavirus have had a disability. And I think that's, there are many things. I think there are probably many aspects behind that statistic, but it's deeply, deeply concerning that that's the case as well.
Yeah, I wish we were going to speak about this because there's a Scottish organisation did the same report only for people with a disability sadly passing away with the coronavirus and stuff like that. Maybe we can come back to that further down the line, but it's quite interesting because the people has been missed, and that goes back to not getting the right support at the right times. Obviously, I don't get self-directed support back, and I hear people's views, and I work with different organisations, and I know, but people's care packages have been cut at the moment. In terms of personal care because of coronavirus and all that. So if somebody was getting like 25 hours a week, they would maybe get, like 15 hours a week. It's definitely being cut, and they kind of like rely on that person to go out and, self-directed support as well can help them with, shopping or taxis or, whatever. And, self-directed support works in so many different ways, and it's a good way to get people's independence and confidence built and out you go and stuff like that, but in some local authorities, sadly, it's not really working so well, and we've got to do more, raise awareness about self-directed support even more now.
Yeah, definitely. Do you know, I think this is, we've only got a limited amount of time to talk about this today, but I think it's definitely something we should come back to. At a different time. It's such an important issue, and we should follow how the progress of the development of a national care service as well. Because I think it's so important. So I think let's definitely come back to this at some point soon.
Okay, well, thanks for listening to the podcast, and we'll be back next month. As I say, if you've got any comments or any things you would like to hear on the podcast, maybe me not being on the podcast might not be a good thing, actually. You can tweet us at Voices for Scotland, and look out for our website, voicesforscotland.scot, and we'll see you next month, and thanks for listening.
Bye.